Morning everybody, welcome to today's live stream. Hope you enjoyed my little video. That's the main pens I've been using this week. So that's just set on a loop whilst I finish getting everything ready. Slightly different desk setup today, so hopefully it'll make things a little bit easier for me. We'll have to see how it goes though. It's early in the morning, isn't it? It certainly is for me. Today I've got a Mandalorian cup. There we go. And I've got, as you can see, my green there. I've got my mint tea today. I make sure I have my coffee before I start the stream. But I like the mint tea. I don't know why, but it's the coffee makes my throat seem drier. Whereas the mint tea just helps to lubricate it a little bit to help me to talk. Hi Marie. So part of my additional setup this time, I do have a list where hopefully as people join I'll start to see the names. Today what are we going to talk about? So when I was looking at what topic to have for today, during the week I got a comment on one of the videos and it was asking, do I store my pens with ink in them or without ink in them, and how do I do it? So I did respond to the comment, but I thought, well, I'd use that as today's, discussion point, and hopefully other people will be able to chip in and we'll get some different ideas of what to do and how people do it. Because to me, this is the whole point of doing not just a channel, but the whole idea of these lives is that we can start building community, getting to know each other a bit better, sharing ideas. And it's done in real time, which is quite nice. So the first thing I thought, well, how do I store the pens that have got ink in them? That was the easy one. So I've got two pen cases. The first one, this is a Galen leather folio. This is the A5 size. I had this now about 2 years. It's starting to show, it's getting a little bit battered. It's starting to show that age. I love the way it looks. It's green, my favourite colour. And in here, I've got, this is the cheaper notebook that I use for note taking. There you can see my scribble. Just take that out. I like it because it always sits in there. So I've always got an A5 notebook with this. And this is what I take when I go out of the house. And although there's no pens in because they're all lined up ready to be shown in a little bit, I've got 6 slots for pens. So I have the 4 on this removable one. He says, trying to do everything back to front. And there we go. And then I've got these 2, which is, they're slightly wider. So these are the ones my bigger pens fit in. So a good example, my Leonardo Memento Zero, that would it would actually normally sit in that one this week. But they don't fit as well in these. So that's why I like the bigger pens go into here. So that's 6 pens. They're my EDC pens. And what I do with my EDC pens is I generally use one a day. And for the duration of that day, I keep using the same pen. And they're the ones which appear in my shorts that I do. I've also got in here, I've got, hopefully, let me see if I can get this right. I've got on there the Evil Eye that came with it. I've also got the tags that came with my 3 Leonardo pens all attached on there. And just a little thumb drive. So that's my first one. And as I say, that's my EDC stuff. Just pop that to one side. My second case, well, it's about the 5th case that I bought, but this is one I've started using. It was a cheap one. I think it was Keiko from China. I think it was about $25, something like that. That's Aussie dollars. In here, it holds 48 pens. So what I've got, the front here, and I'm trying to... Why am I paying over the camera when I can see it just below me on my preview? So these are all the pens that are inked up that are under 100 Aussie dollars. Then in the back, here, I store the number of pens that are inked up, but these ones, they're over 100 Aussie dollars. As you see, there's a big difference, all those versus, I think there's 5 there, plus the few that I've got inked up for my EDC this week. So that's my inked ones. I really like this 48 one. It does help limit me because I think otherwise I would just keep inking up pens and never finishing them. You know, like here where I end up with loads of them. Part of the reason why I do the use me up months, at the start of last month, this was completely full. Now it's about half empty. You know, I used up so many pens. Pop that over there, get them out of the way. So the next thing is this. These are where I store my uninked pens. What this actually is it's an, helps if I put the right way up, doesn't it? It's an A4 document holder, which we bought, last year, about 18 months ago. I bought a load of them, I think. How many have we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20 of them in total. So it's just A4 page. There's a bit of A4 paper. And it's just clear plastic. Now, when you look at it, you think, well, how can that be of any use for pens? I know. So what my loving wife did, she's, as I said last week, I often refer to her as a crafty cow. We got some of this material here. I like Star Wars. And we got this in Spotlight, which is like a cloth retailer, arts and crafty type stuff. But we got loads of this. And she's made these little beds, just got red on the back. And all she's done to make these is, we actually got some round doweling. I can't show you it because it's sealed in. Hopefully this might, some round doweling. And use that to create little separators. And that then just fits nicely in there, so it gives me a nice bed. It's got that Star Wars theme to it, so sticking with the idea of, you know, trying to theme things with things I like. That same material, I wanted to make me some pen rolls, but it's like everything. There's only so much time until she's never done one before. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes on. Hi, Paul. We've got Paul joining us as well. Just to give you an idea of what these actually look like, here's one which is full of pens. What I've got is I've got my little label machine, so I put on the front, this is Moonman. All these pens are Moonman pens. And then there we go with them in. Also make labels for each slot so I know which pen is in which. Beauty of this as well, the way that it's made, I can actually get 2 pens in each slot. Here I've only got 1. Because I've still got quite a few spare trays. But as these fill up, you know, I can start using multiple. And it's really handy. And then they sit behind me. So I've got here, I have 10 of them. And on the other side here, you can see the other side, I've got another 10 there as well. So that's how I store my uninked pens. How do you store yours? Again, as I said earlier, to me it's all about sharing ideas. Marie, absolutely, it's a brilliant idea for storing pens. It was something, we were looking for something because, you know, my pen collection was growing. And I'd been trying to keep them in pen cases. And to be honest, it looked ugly. And there was no real organisation. But by using these, I can organise things. You know, I'm just going to pull from there. So like this one on the front, I've got Japanese. So I know if I want a pen that's made in Japan, just go and grab it. Similarly, I've got another one there, Italy. So they're all visible on the shelves. It makes it really easy for me to get in and grab what I want. So that's how I store my pens. Let's get to the right screen and we'll switch over. Hopefully the magic's happened. So last week's semi-final was the Just Turn-Ins Enceladus, and that was versus the Pilot Custom 823. I've got to be honest, this was a foregone conclusion. I mean, we can see here, I had no doubt in my mind that the 823 would win. It's a really nice pen. Have I got it handy? I think I have. Yeah, here it is. Such a nice pen. Oh, let me go back to camera only. Pointless me showing it, and then I will do a little bit of writing with this in a few minutes. You know, I do think this Enceladus is a pretty pen. Really is nice. But I did think, yeah, I thought it would be that 823. Now I did a little bit of a breakdown. Let me just pull up my spreadsheet. And then we'll switch back over. Let me minimize these just so I don't end up showing information that I shouldn't. I don't know, technology, so many screens, so much to do. So I did a quick calculation. There were 47 votes. So 37 votes went to the 823 and 10 to the Just Turnings pen, which I thought was good. And it was quite a nice number of people voting. So we got quite a good idea of what people were thinking. So yeah, really like that. Really pleased with that. I've also been obviously watching some videos during the week, and I thought I want to actually point out a video that I watched and that I quite enjoyed. And it was by a guy called Kendall Wolfenden. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. He did a video about a fountain pen database that he uses. So here's the start of his video. Fountain pen database, an impossible task. What he's done, he's created a Google spreadsheet. And in that Google spreadsheet, he's trying to build up a database of all the fountain pens there are. Quite a difficult task. Here's the database. He's shared this on Google. I mean, I'm saying database, it's a spreadsheet. But I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's great what he's trying to do. I think he's in for a very, very long job, because trying to do that. Now, I know he's trying to get people in the community to join in. I'm just very quickly scrolling down it. He's got 366 entries in there. I reckon there must be thousands in the end. And I think certainly if you got a chance, give it a watch. It was really interesting. I think that the project he's trying to do is really good. And I know there's a number of similar things out there. Why I particularly liked this is I've got an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac app that I maintain, wrote and maintain, for managing my fountain pen collection. I will actually use that and demo that in a few, maybe 2 or 3 weeks or a few weeks on here. It gave me some ideas for some additional fields. So what I'm going to do before I demo it, I'm going to add in the extra information that I've picked up from watching this, just so that I can then show you the latest version. I think it's really good. As I say, really enjoyed it. It was one of those videos where you're thinking, yeah, this is so useful. And I'm also thinking, oh, you've got an impossible task there. So hopefully he'll carry on with that. I'd love to see more data going into there. I say it was 300 and something, 366. One pen for each day of the year. You know, we've got Pilot, Viscontis, Leonardos, Pelican, Mont Blanc, Lamy, Kaweco, Ziza, Diplomats, Wingsuns, Pen BBS. I think Pen BBS, there'll be a massive list there on its own. The Moonmans. So, yeah, check out that video if you got the chance. The URL, I know it's hard to see. If you want the URL, hit me up and I will send it to you. But just search for Kendall Wolfenden. I quite enjoy a lot of his videos. I find them really informative. He's one of the YouTubers now that I find I watch virtually every one that he comes up with. So yeah, use the spreadsheet as a database. I'm completely with you. I've worked in a number of places. My background is IT. My background is actually relational databases, so I'm used to working with databases. Number of places I've been where people have tried to use a spreadsheet is quite surprising, but you need to start somewhere. So that's what he's doing, is started somewhere. And unfortunately, the number of essentially free, which is what Google Docs is usually, the number of free resources where you can run a database is very low. That's why I wrote my app. So my app obviously has got a database behind it. As I said, my background is databases. I love databases. I use Mac only. The only program that I miss from Windows is Microsoft Access. Absolutely love Microsoft Access. I wish that they would fetch it to the Mac. I don't actually use Microsoft programs. I use Apple's Pages instead of Microsoft Word, Apple Numbers instead of Excel. Access would be the one thing. If it was brought to Mac, I think I'd virtually instantly buy it. Really miss Access. I used it for everything. I very rarely used spreadsheets. If I could do it in Access, that's where I would. So yeah, I do agree with you what you're saying, but it's a case of let's start somewhere. So let's take a look at this week's pens I've been using. Switch over to the right view and fetch my cheat sheet. Here's my cheat sheet for this week. I've now automated this, so it actually takes me like a whole 30 seconds to produce my script for the week, whereas previously it was taking me about 30 minutes. Paper here, this is a Midori cotton pad. So this is the pad I'm using for my lives. So my first pen I used this week, Pen BBS 494. It's a fine nib. It's a nice pen though. So we got here the Pen BBS 494. Don't forget to add any things into the chat. I do keep going back and looking at the chat every so often. Fine nib. And the ink is by Robert Oster. And it's Rubine. Nearly out of ink here. This was, I think it's an $8 pen. Really nice piston filling pen. Had not had any issues with it. Got nice ink flow. I quite like this Rubine. It's the last of it though because it was a sample that I had. So the second pen that I used, I showed this a little bit earlier. This is the Just Turnings Enceladus. So Just Turnings Enceladus. It's actually announced a new model this week, and the resin he's using in the new model is a resin he's making himself as well. This has got a broad Yoho nib. The ink is by Robert Oster, and it's Tranquility. Again, beautiful ink. This combo is extremely wet. I've actually done some drying times with it, and it takes over 2 minutes to dry. Just look at this there. This is Brooks Blanks, and it's Golden Blue Jay is the material name. Very pretty. Oh, just coughing away there. My third pen, again brought out earlier, the Pilot Custom 823. This is getting quite low on ink, so I'm hoping it'll last this week. If it runs out of ink, it'll be getting cleaned out and refilled. Love this pen. So this is the Pilot Custom 823 with a broad nib as well. The ink by Dominant Industry. It's Lungo. Like a nice coffee named, coffee coloured. Again, fairly wet. I aren't sure what I'm going to put in here next. I don't want to put a blue. I don't want to put a brown ink. I'm toying with maybe like a turquoisey type, maybe a teal type ink. Just not sure. Just want something different because I tend to always keep brown ink in there. My next pen, let's move this up ever so slightly. Narwhal Nautilus. This is the Noctiluca, or Pelagia Noctiluca. Hopefully that I've managed to pronounce that right. I think that's a jellyfish from somewhere. I'm going to say somewhere around South America. This was one of the original models of the Nautilus. I'm getting a little bit concerned with Narwhal pricing because I do think they're starting to go way up in price, and I paid nearly $200 for this, and I'm not 100% certain it's worth $200. Something, it's nice. I'm not saying it's not a nice pen, but now, hopefully, That's not because it's got an issue, it's because it might be out of ink. Problem I've got with these portal windows here, they're so hard to see. I don't know if you can see that. I was writing with this yesterday, and it did keep running out of ink, and I think it might be out. So that's something I need to check that. Let me just get over here, see if I can work the piston and get a little bit of ink out. Maybe that might work. Let me put that so it's actually visible. So I'm just working that piston knob slightly. Right, we've got a drop of ink. So we've got Narwhal. It was Narwhal when I bought it. Nautilus. Extra broad nib. Extra broad. The ink in here is by Pure Pens, which is a Welsh company. And it's People's Charter. I like this ink. It's a very dark, like dark maroon or dark purple colour. But what I find, and hopefully as this dries, it's not quite dry yet, it's got like a green sheen to it. Let's give this, it takes quite a while. It's a fairly wet ink, this one. So that's one giving me a problem today. So it could be that it's out of ink, although I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that. The next pen, Twisby Draco. Pretty pen. This is a pen though. Now I've been looking for this word all week because you ever get that thing where you're talking about something and you know there's a proper word for it and you just can't think of it. 3 or 4 times I've tried to describe the word to people this week. Just cannot come up with it. 4 o'clock in the morning this morning, bang. The word I'm looking at, it's full of compromises. I knew there was a real word for it, I just could not think of it. So this is the Twisby Draco. Broad nibbed. The ink in here is by Diamine. And it's mulled wine. Really nice ink. Didn't do that with the Nautilus. Let's just pull that Nautilus out for a second, hopefully without chucking it on the floor. You know, to me, you know, when you look at this pen, beautiful material, stupid little ink window. Can hardly see that. Stupid looking nib, looks too small. You know, as it compromises. But it is a nice pen. I do enjoy writing with it. It's just not worth, well, I don't think it's worth the money I paid for it. My next pen, I think, is worth every cent. Sailor Pro Gear Slim. This is the blue-green nebula. Beautiful colour. I'm going to fetch it up to the camera and hopefully it will focus. As I turn it around, can you see the silver sparkles that are coming through? Very, very nice. Just going to quickly check something on the other screen. There we go. So this one, Pro Gear Slim, quite small. So I do need to use this posted. Worth it though, because this nib is so really nice. So I've got Sailor Pro Gear Slim with, bet you won't believe this, a broad nib. The ink is by Diamine and it's marine. It's the first time I've used this ink in this pen and I quite like it. It's a nice combo. Beautiful feedback, really, really nice. It's got that nice audible feedback. It's also got a nice tactile feel to it, so I can tell when I'm writing. So the pen is a bit small. It's a cartridge converting pen. Beauty of that means I can change my ink fairly frequently. Normally I've used Robert Oster Tranquility or Diamine Aurora Borealis in here. I like the Aurora Borealis because, yes, it's a nice colour match, but it's a nice name match. They're both astronomical things. But this Diamine Marine really surprised me how nice it is. So yesterday's pen is a Visconti. It's a steel-nibbed Visconti. This is the Van Gogh. This is in the blue portrait. Really like this. I like the facets on it. They're really, the way they play the light. Not so keen on the cap. The cap is magnetic. So you'll see this when I have my video about it during the week. But if I just slowly and then snap. I do use this pen unposted. It does feel a bit small. Ideally, I'd want to post it. It feels very, very nice posted. I just worry I'll scratch the material because, you know, we've got their metal on that cap. So this is a Visconti Van Gogh. Do you reckon you know what the nib point is? It's a broad. And the ink in here is Diamine Aqua Lagoon. I like this ink as well. I like the marine. This to me is a bit more on the turquoise side, whereas the marine, it's got a bit more green. And especially when you see them side by side, you can see that coming through. Nice pen, not overly wet. The nib on this is fairly small. I'm guessing it's a number 5 size nib. Just have to have a mouthful of coffee, sorry. Then today's pen, Leonardo Memento Zero Grande. This is in dark Hawaii. Love my Leonardos. So this is the Leonardo Memento Zero. Now I can see there's been some comments come in. I will switch over to them and we'll have a look at those in a second. This pen, it's got a medium nib. I bought this before I got into broad nibs. The ink is by Dominant Industry. And it's called Winterwood. A nice brown ink. I know it's a blue pen. Don't let my wife see this because I'll get into trouble for she likes to see pen and inks matching. Now, my excuse is there's this strip of brown. Hopefully, let's move that up. We've got brown. So I do have some brown in the pen. I like this ink though. It's brown. To me, depending on what the paper is and the way the light, it does have a little bit of a green to it as well. It's not a sheen. It's just hints of green in the brown. Now, hopefully, we can see with that Narwhal Nautilus here. Let me get that into the camera. Hopefully, as the light plays over that, you might be able to see that green sheen. Loads of green sheen on this. Certainly, I can see loads of it. Very, very nice. So that's this week's pens. Let me just swap on over. Just scoot on over. Let's go back to the camera. And we'll take a look at some comments. Let me just get back to the right window. Oh, loads. There we go. So, Paul, 5 display trays that are in the bookcases. How do I get rid of it? Whoa, no. You know, it gives me like a pop-up and it means I can't actually read the comment. Let me see if I can get... I've got 5 display trays that are in the bookcases. One has Delta and Pelican pens, one with Visconti and Pineda, and one with Asian theme for Stipula. And one for Yeah, brilliant idea. I like having display cases. I'll say I like them, although they're hidden away, but I can very quickly pull them out, as I've been doing today. Next one. Rubber tusk drinks compared to other brands. I think it's to me, they're very similar to Diamine inks, I find. They work really well. I've not had any issues with any of the pens that I have them in. You know, they're just really nice, solid pens. Let me fetch this up here. I've got all sorts of problems going on. You know, technology is brilliant, isn't it? Apart from when it isn't. There we go, that's better. Marie, do you have any stub nibs? Yes, I do. I've got a number of 1.1s and I've got one 1.5 and I've got some parallels. I do have a video idea to compare them. So, just an example. He says, quickly pulling out one of the trays. This is an Italian one. So I've got here, here we go. This is a Leonardo Ferrari with the 1.1 stub. Just pop that back. In my inked up pens, oops, just made and throw my notebook on the paper. Let me just check here. I think this is a stub. No, it's a broad. This is my Monteverde Ritmo. I thought that was a stub, but I've got about 4 stub nibs, 1.1 stubs. What I'm going to do, I've got an idea for a video where I'll compare the 4. Just not sure how I'm going to do it just yet. Yeah, I completely agree about Narwhal becoming too expensive. I say it's a shame because I do like the pens, but you know, I can remember when I got my school kill, you know, that was, I think, about 70 or 80 Aussie dollars. And now, you know, I looked at the new New Horizons, the latest models. That was nearly $300. If I'm going to spend that much, I'd rather get a pilot. I really would. Paul, yeah, Nautilus still making pens under 100. I don't blame them for trying to go for the luxury market. I think it's a good idea. I can understand where they're going with that. My biggest concern is that in trying to go for the luxury market, what they're going to do is end up making people like me think, oh, they've done expensive. I'm assuming this is still talking about now, all about the vendor exclusive models. So I know Goldspot does a number. Not sure if Goulet does, but I certainly remember seeing them at Goldspot. To me, this is part of the issue, not just with Narwhal, but even Leonardo doing that. They're releasing so many different models to just specific retailers that it's hard to keep up with them. And then what are the differences between them? That's really, really difficult, that I think. Paul? Oh, I wasn't aware of that. So, Paul, I also understand Narwhal is also providing financial backing for the Hermas resurrection. I think that's a good idea. Even the same, though, I do think they're starting to go a little bit more expensive. Narwhal starting to make pens for ASC, maybe even Joya, for 3 times the price. Yeah. I see that Narwhal are now doing a gold nib. That's one thing I wouldn't mind trying. Rubbing my hands together is a bit nippy at the moment. I got up this morning, 8 degrees. Couldn't believe it. Armando Simone Club Studio line is a $300 school kill. To be honest, I've never actually looked at their pens. Not that I'm not interested in, but yeah, really, I've seen a few of them. Is it Penultimate Dave has some? I think his are like the more expensive ones. Before you got into broad nibs, as in before you got into the hard stuff. Oh, Loveless comment. Yeah, so obviously when I got back into fountain pens, you know, growing up in the UK, and I've noticed the same here, if you go into a stationery shop, all the pens, medium nibs. Very occasionally you might see a fine, but the vast majority medium nibbed. So that's what you get because that's what you're used to. So when I got back into fountain pens about 3 years ago, I obviously was focusing on medium nibs. Once I started buying Chinese pens, that obviously changed because it's very difficult to get a medium nib from China. Most of them extra fine or fine. So yeah, spent a lot of time working with that. And then, I can't remember which one it is. I think it was the Twisby Diamond 580 is the first one where I got a broad nib. Once I've got that, it was like the light went on. I absolutely loved it. You know, the line you were seeing, or the line that I see certainly from fine and extra fine, doesn't show the colour of the ink to me. Yes, it obviously does show that you can see that it's a colour, but it doesn't show off a lot of the like shading and sheening properties. Mediums are quite nice. They're starting to get there. I've got a medium nib on a Pilot Custom Heritage 92. One of the best nibs I've got. It's a gold nib, but I say it's medium. They're very, very nice. I've got to be honest, I'd rather have that nib on the 823, but they're just not the same size. Yeah, then got into the broad nibs. Really like broad nibs. If I'm buying a pen now, my default nib is a broad. About a year ago is when I started getting some stub nibs. That Ferrari that I showed you, that was the first. Absolutely love it. I like the way it gives some different character to it. So if I'm not going to get a broad, then I will get a 1.1. And yeah, hopefully I'll get more 1.1 nibs going forward. I've actually got a pen. It's in the post now. I've been waiting for it for a while. I've got a pen coming from a guy over in Melbourne. The company's called Platypus Pens, and it's a 3D printed pen. Can't wait for that to arrive. Hopefully I'll be able to show you it on next week's live stream. And my plan is then to film the first impressions video in the week following that, and that'll go out. I think it's near the end of July, or sometime in July. I think might be the end of June, but it's sort of June, July time. Really looking forward to trying that one out. You know, the idea of it being 3D printed, I think really like that. Are there any more comments? Let me just see if I can get rid of this thing. I don't know why it does this to me, but it's, there we go. It's hiding everything behind a pop-up. This is a pop-up. Got rid of it. Okay, let's move on and have a look at the videos that I've had. So the week we've just gone. Last Sunday we had the quarterfinal. We've looked at the result of that. The Pilot 823 wasn't a surprise to me. Tuesday's video was looking at the Jinhao 100 and the Kaigaloo 316A. Love both these pens. They're both in the like a duofold style pen. Very nice, very, very similar. Little bits of differences. Both got medium nibs. Both nice to use. Friday we had the Kaigaloo 222 unboxing. That's an unusual pen. Haven't really seen it much. I don't see it much even now on AliExpress. Had quite a few people commenting saying they've got one. Did have one gentleman saying that he's had issues with the threads. So that's something I'll keep an eye on. Excuse me a second. Voice is starting to go. Yesterday, who was Earl Grey? That was a really interesting one. I like Earl Grey tea, although today, as I've said, I've got mint tea. And it was quite interesting to look at some of the history. Really enjoyed researching that one. Today, and that's the live, then today's video, I'm looking at the fountain pen tournament that we've done, and from the first 4 heats, obviously there was a losing pen. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking a quick look at the 4 losing pens. I just thought it'd be interesting to do a little bit of round out with that, keeping it on this theme, because obviously we didn't know the winner of Heat 2 until this morning, so there's no way I'd be able to get the final filmed, edited and released today. So that'll be coming out Sunday next week. Tuesday, that's my Pens and Use wrap-up for May. So that was a Use Me Up month. Quite an interesting month. I think and I ended up going through about 18 to 20 pens. Friday, that's going to be Pens and Use for June. The title for June's month is You Paid How Much? And it's generally because When I show my wife a pen, she says, "You paid how much?" Or other words that are meaning very similar, which unfortunately, if I used them on here, would get the channel banned. That's going to be a really good month. It does mean one thing. All the pens are, well, I'm going to say expensive. They're all, I think the cheapest is this now all Nautilus, which was about $200. I've used them all once so far. Very nice. It's going to be a really enjoyable month. Next Saturday, that is, turning the page, next Saturday, interesting video, that's going to be, is infinity a number? This was quite an interesting one, bit of a mind bender, trying to get your mind around infinity and what infinity is and isn't. Obviously, that's not on my pen channel. That will be on my Tricky Questions channel. Really interesting, though. Quite nice into that one. Research-wise, for my Tricky Questions, I've been researching this week for a video looking at the Star Trek transporters. You know, where Captain Kirk is "beam me up, Scotty," which was never actually said in the series. Things like it was said, but no one ever actually said it. And looking at how the transporters work, obviously it's made up, it's TV. And then looking at the current state of research. So are they actually possible? You know, what's going on in terms of trying to make them possible? It's been a really interesting one to research. That's all that I've got for today. I'm just going to quickly check the chat to see if there's any other messages come in. Let's go back to live chat. So I don't see any additional messages coming through. So thank you all for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm really enjoying making these videos and quite enjoying these lives. If there's anything you'd like me to discuss in a future live video, please let me know. Either drop a comment on this video or send me an email. Just get a message to me and I'll add it onto the list. Can't guarantee when I'll discuss it, but the more we can build the list up, the better. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, if you're joining us and you haven't already subscribed, please, will you subscribe to my channel? I know it sounds like I'm begging. I hate actually asking this one, but the YouTube gods, they say it's one of the best things to do, is if you don't ask people to subscribe, how will they know to subscribe? That's all I've got for today, so I'll talk to you again soon.